All right, we got to get into more headlines. We got to get into more headlines here, friends. Saudi Arabia. Oh, check this out. I got this headline. This is fascinating. It says here, even Saudi Arabia is preparing for the end of oil. What? How? When? Where? What? Is this even possible? Let's check it out. The world's dependence on oil is fading, and Saudi Arabia doesn't want to get left behind. It says here, the kingdom will build a $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund to slowly but unmistakably transform its economy for a post-oil world, according to Bloomberg. The news was delivered by Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman during a 5-hour interview at his royal compound that stretched until 4 a.m. local time. In the short term, Saudi Arabia's economy and revenue will still be rooted in oil. That's because the fund will get the bulk of its value from the shares it holds in Saudi Aramco, the kingdom's prize oil asset and the world's most valuable company. Aramco will be publicly listed sometime in 2017 or 2018, but Saudi Arabia is only selling 5% of the company. The rest of the shares will be moved into its new fund. All right, so we have here Saudi Arabia is preparing for the end of oil. Why? Well, oil prices have slumped. Oil prices have slumped amid his comments. Saudi comments. It says here, oil prices have fallen sharply after Saudi Arabia said it would freeze production only if other major producers did the same. Now we know OPEC, which is by and large led by Saudi Arabia, has been continuing to produce oil at levels as if we're not in as if we're not crashing. They're still producing it even though it's not needed. And what we're seeing is a crash in oil where we're down to below 40 bucks a barrel. It says here, the comments by Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman are seen as a challenge to Iran, which is very interesting. It has vowed to increase oil production following the lifting of Western sanctions. In the Bloomberg interview, the prince also spoke about his plan for a giant public investment fund, which is what we just talked about, the $2 trillion fund that would be designed to reduce Saudi Arabia's reliance on income from oil. Now, it says here, part of the plan would be a sale of shares in the state-owned oil firm Aramco, which could start as soon as next year. Now, with regard to the production freeze of oil, it says here, Iran will not take part in a conference in Doha on April 17th, where the freezing of oil output is due to be discussed. Now, the Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia said, and I quote, "If all countries agree to freeze production, we will be among them." Because of that one comment, it drove oil prices down to a deeper slump. But wait, there's more. Iran oil exports, it says here, surpasses 2 million barrels per day. 2 million. Is this the reason why Saudi Arabia is preparing for the end of oil? Because Iran has oil exports that have surpassed over 2 million barrels. We're looking at kingdom rising against kingdom, nation against nation. These are signs of the times. According to the Iran oil exports, it says here, Iran's oil exports have surpassed 2 million barrels per day. This is stunning. This is why Saudi Arabia has had to tag team with Turkey, because they feel a little betrayed by the United States. Saudi Arabia has always been an ally of the U.S. However, not an ally with Iran, right? Since the U.S. did the nuclear accord, begging Iran for a nuclear deal, being with the P5+1 to make it happen, make it a reality. Now Iran has become the new power in the Middle East. Excuse me. They have become the new power, and Saudi Arabia does not like it because Saudi Arabia has always been the power in the Middle East. So here it says Iran's oil exports have now surpassed 2 million barrels per day, putting it in Saudi Arabia's face, my friends. It says here, following the lifting of sanctions under its nuclear deal with world powers. Now, we have Oil Minister Bijan being quoted as stating the following. Iran's oil and gas condensate exports are now at more than 2 million barrels per day, after rising by 250,000 barrels per day since March 1st. The ministry's Shana news service quotes Zanaging as saying, Iran has doubled exports since this nuclear accord took effect on January 16th, 2016. Iran, who is also an OPEC member, has the world's fourth largest oil reserves, but its exports were long hampered by sanctions over its nuclear program. It has moved ahead with an increase in exports despite global concerns over a supply glut that has pushed oil prices below $40 a barrel from more than $100 a barrel in mid-2014. I just want to know why we're still spending over $2.80 here in California. I mean, we're talking about under $40 a barrel. We should really be spending about 75 cents a gallon, and they'd still be making a pretty nice penny. They'd still be getting, they'd still be getting a nice dollar from that. Anyway, let's continue. Top exporter Saudi Arabia has said it is willing to consider an output freeze to help shore up prices. But in an interview published Friday, Saudi Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman reiterated Riyadh's position that other major producers, including Iran, would need to do the same. Again, that statement from Saudi Arabia has literally caused a slump in oil. While Iran is increasing, we see Saudi Arabia decreasing. Again, a sign of the times. The kingdom rising up against kingdom. But there's more than that. I believe that this is Revelation, the book of Revelation in action. Go with me to Revelation chapter 6. Oh, my friends. Revelation chapter 6, please. Saudi Arabia, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, Prince Salman, his remarks, just him stating that he would be willing to consider an output freeze as long as Iran does. It literally drove down oil prices below $40 a barrel again. Also, I want to add to this too. Major oil producers led by Russia and Saudi Arabia are to meet in Doha on April 17th to discuss measures to stabilize prices, including a proposal not to pump out oil above a certain level. But Tehran rejects any output freeze, so they're not going along with Saudi Arabia's idea. First mooted by Qatar, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela in February until it regains its pre-sanctions market share. All right. If we're to see a headline and to even hear what it is that we're reading right now, to see a headline such as this one, that even Saudi Arabia is preparing for the end of oil. And now you have Iran oil exports surpassing 2 million barrels per day, which is, we don't need that. The world doesn't need that. We have oil already topped off at our facilities here in the U.S. We have oil topped off in facilities worldwide. The last thing we need is more barrels, but they couldn't care less. Iran wants to be the new superpower in the Middle East. But what is it going to lead to besides the end of oil for Saudi Arabia? It could lead to the following. Check this out. Revelation chapter 6. Revelation chapter 6 verse 5. Let's read it together. It says here, when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, come and see. So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. Scarcity on earth, my friends. Scarcity on earth where this would cause a famine of a type, a shortage, because when you have pride versus pride, the end result is a collapse. It's nothing short than what happened with Satan when he fell. Pride caused him to fall. What the Bible says, the book of Proverbs says, pride comes before a fall. Right now we're looking at kingdom rising up against kingdom, nation rising up against nation. We have Iran and Saudi Arabia duking it out right now with regards to being the superpower in the Middle East. Both very prideful kingdoms. Sunni versus Shia. Muslims. Brother rising up against brother. And it will cause a world collapse of oil. And when oil collapses, finances, the financial markets collapse. And when financial markets collapse, you get scarcity on earth. When you get scarcity on earth, you get confirmation of Revelation chapter 6, verse 5, the third seal, the black horse. Oh, amazing times we're living in, saints. Amazing times. We got another headline here. We got another headline. Speaking of Iran. Speaking of Iran, it says here, U.S. The U.S. has seized thousands of Iranian weapons, including grenade launchers, in Arabian Sea. This reminds me of how the U.S. Navy vessel, our U.S. Navy vessel, was captured by Iranian officials. And now it looks like we did the same thing to Iranian vessel. Check this out. The crew of a U.S. Navy ship stopped a massive Iranian arms shipment dead in its tracks, seizing thousands of weapons, AK-47 rifles, and rocket-propelled grenade launchers that likely were headed to Yemen, the Pentagon announced Monday. The seizure, which unfolded in the Arabian Sea on March 28th, was a third of its kind in recent weeks. This is according to military officials. Iran has been supporting the Houthi rebels in Yemen and their proxy war against a Saudi-led coalition backed by the United States. See, that confirms what we were just talking about. We were just talking about how the oil, there is, you have the kingdom going up against kingdom, nation going up against nation with regard to Saudi Arabia and Iran concerning their oil output. Saudi Arabia is saying we'll freeze it if Iran says, if Iran freezes it. That statement alone caused the oil to slump again below $40 a barrel. Iran says, no, we're not planning to freeze anything. We want our market shares back up now that we're allowed to produce over 2 million barrels of oil per day. Again, which the world does not need. We're overflowing with oil. They don't like each other. They're literally duking it out in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia does not want to give up the power that they've had for so long. Iran says it's too late, it's ours, ha ha, and we're nuclear. Little do they know Saudi Arabia is a little nuclear themselves. But check this out. You have a proxy war. You have that proxy war going on in Yemen. Little Yemen, right? You all remember what happened during Yemen. Yemen during the Arab Spring. The overthrow of the Yemeni government. Now Yemen being a hotbed for terrorists and proxy wars, in this case, between Saudi Arabia and the nation of Iran. Yemen, the government of Yemen was overthrown by the Obama administration in the so-called, again, Arab Spring. The Obama administration seeking to lead the way of democracy in the Middle East. Democracy, Middle East. I know, it's, you see, we knew when we first heard it. Not many knew. Many thought, oh yeah, that's great. Muslims and Islam. Islam and democracy don't mix. They don't want it at all. But anyway, with Yemen, you had Abdul Salih that was overthrown and replaced with the Muslim Brotherhood. And then the Muslim Brotherhood was overthrown in Yemen. And now you have a continued proxy war that's taking place. The U.S. seizing thousands of Iranian weapons, including grenade launchers, in the Arabian Sea because they were headed towards Yemen to fight against Saudi-led backed troops. It's amazing the hour that we're living in, saints. There's great tension in the last days with regards to nations. It's Bible prophecy. It says in Luke chapter 21, verse 25, nations with great distress and perplexity. Anyway, let me read a little bit more of this article to you here. It says here, the seizure, I already read that. The arms shipment appears to mark the latest provocative action from the defiant Islamic Republic, also known as Iran, which reported last month that it tested missiles marked with the phrase, Israel must be wiped out in Hebrew. And on Monday, the Iranian government warned the U.S. to butt out of trying to control its missile program. This is the same Iran that we begged a nuclear accord with. The White House should know that defense capacities and missile power, especially at the present juncture where plots and threats are galore, is among the Iranian nation's red lines. This is according from the Ayatollah, okay? It says here, we don't allow anyone to violate it. On Friday, President Barack Obama said Iran was obeying the letter of its landmark nuclear agreement with the West, but not the spirit of it. Seriously, Obama? Seriously? They're obeying the letter, but they're not obeying the spirit. They're obeying word for word, but they don't have a really good attitude about it. They're not doing anything. They just launched a missile last week, a couple of weeks ago, with the words written in Hebrew, Israel must be wiped out. And many are calling that a violation of the nuclear accord. It's something, isn't it? But, anything to save face, Barack Obama will say, everything's fine, guys. They may not have a good attitude about it, but at least they're following the letter. It says here, a cache of Iranian weapons seized in the Arabian Sea assembled on the deck of the guided missile destroyer USS Gravely. The Navy said the shipment included 1,500 AK-47s, over 200 rocket-propelled grenade launchers. Man, they're ready for war. And 50 caliber machine guns. After the U.S. seized the weapon stash from the Dow, traditional sailing vessel, the Navy let the crew go. A U.S. official told Fox News current rules do not allow Western naval forces to seize the crew in addition to illicit cargo. Kind of like what Iran did to us, we didn't do to them. It says here, you have to find a country willing to prosecute. A defense official reached would not have revealed the nationality of the Dow's crew. Last month, Iran announced that it tested missiles marked with the phrase Israel must be wiped out in violation of a United Nations Security Council resolution tied to the recent nuclear deal. The resolution forbids Iran from working on its ballistic missile program for 8 years and bans sales of its conventional weapons. In January, Iran captured 10 U.S. Navy sailors. We all remember that headline. This was in the Persian Gulf. On the same day, President Barack Obama delivered his State of the Union address. The Iran released the sailors 1 day later. Since then, they've decided to parade. They did some type of special parade where they mocked the actual seizure of the U.S. Navy and its 10 sailors over in Iran. They've also made some statues. I'm not kidding. This is what they've done. They have given, you had the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei giving medals to the soldiers, to their troops who had seized the U.S. vessels. And I want to even say they included a commercial on it. It's really embarrassing, to say the least, my friends. Anyway, it's signs of the times. Signs of the times. U.S. seizes thousands of Iranian weapons, including grenade launchers in the Arabian Sea. Same Iran we did a peaceful nuclear accord with.